Hey, welcome to Monday Morning Marriage Minute. It is a gorgeous day. I'm looking directly into the sun. Please excuse the shades, but that's just the way it is. Again, thank you for all of your comments, emails, etc. You can keep your questions coming to oneminutemarriage@gmail.com. Again, I'll keep trying to answer them. So, I want to start off with a corny joke. You ready? What's the difference between a terrorist and a mad spouse? Well, you can negotiate with the terrorist. Drum roll, hi-hat, there you go. So, take a minute and talk again about different types of communication and conflict. Here's one major thing you need to understand. Quite interesting because I just finished a book called Never Split the Difference, and the last name of the author is Voss. Excellent book. But he was a terrorist negotiator and did a lot of hostage negotiation, things like that. And he said one of the first things he has to do when he gets on the phone with someone is he has to establish an understanding where they both understand each other. So he said the first thing he tries to do is he tries to get the person on the other end of the phone to tell them exactly where they're at, how they got there, and what they want. Then he repeats that and he says, "Is that right?" In which they will then say, "Yeah, that's right." And he says that's paramount because then the person feels heard and understood. And without that, negotiation really stalls. It's the exact same way in marriage. When you're talking to someone, your marriage partner, and there are disagreements or there's conflict, a lot of times we do just the opposite. We try to just batter them with why we're right and what we're trying to say, rather than stop and taking the time to listen to them. One of the key things you can do in any argument or in any discussion, as we call it in our house, is to simply listen. And when the person's done, you repeat everything they said and then say, just like Mr. Voss said, "Is that right?" At that point in time, your spouse will say, "Yes, that's right." Now what you've done is you've established common ground that you're listening. And when you listen and they know you've listened, they know you understand. And when you understand and they know you understand, all of a sudden, the floodgate of communication opens up where now we can get down to what's really important, the relationship and not the issue. Because if I value you and I value the relationship, I will listen. If I don't value you, then I won't listen. We might not think of it that way, but if we continue to argue back and forth and we feel like this person isn't listening to me, really what we're saying is they don't value me. And listen, if someone doesn't feel valued in a relationship, you're probably not going to go very far in the relationship or in the negotiation. So you need to understand, when you talk, first you need to put away that little lawyer in your head. And what I mean by that is we find ourselves many times when someone's talking, we start to build our case of what we're going to say in our defense. You can't do that. That is a huge no-no in communication. What you need to do instead is take mental notes of everything they're saying so that you then can repeat it and ask them if that's what they mean and how they feel. Then, once you've established with them that you've listened and you understand, then what you need to do is you need to begin to paint different word pictures of how they might feel. And trust me, this is huge. So you get in an argument with your spouse. You listen to everything they say. When they're done, you then repeat. So what you're saying is A, B, and C. Is that right? Yes, that's right. Now you go to the next step. Man, I can see how that must make you feel frustrated or lonely or unheard or, whatever it is, you try to then identify the emotions that they're feeling. Now that's the double whammy. Now, not only do you understand, but you're trying to understand how they feel. Once a person knows you've listened and that you understand and that you know how they feel, now all of a sudden, what's the most important bubbles to the surface, and that is the relationship between us. That you care enough to try to hear, listen, and understand. Once I know you're listening, once I know you understand, once I know you're trying to empathize with me and feel how I must feel, guess what? The argument really doesn't become that important anymore. Because what I've established is that you're most important, not this issue and not the argument. Once you do that, all of a sudden your cards are on the table and you can really begin to talk. But if you never silence that lawyer in your head who wants to defend, then guess what? You will continue to chase the tail of that dog in that argument, and you will never, ever get anywhere. Now, you might say, but what if my spouse doesn't listen to me and doesn't, ask me if that's how I feel and doesn't? That's okay. They will learn quickly by how you model great communication. And again, as always, and I can't state this enough, in great relationships, you very rarely ever settle the argument. You very rarely work through all your differences. The key is to work on your friendship with one another. I say that almost every, one of these Monday Morning Marriage Minutes, but it's because it's that important. You look to relationships that get along and that are making it, and guess what? They're focusing on the friendship. They're not worrying about all the differences and disagreements. Yes, they practice great communication, but even in great communication, that doesn't mean you work everything out. But what they're doing is they're saying, you know what? I want to work on great communication because I want to work on our friendship. I want to be best friends. And again, when you're best friends with someone, you know what? Things really don't matter after a while. Because even with my best friends outside of my marriage, we don't agree on a lot. But we work on our friendship, and that makes it easy to tolerate one another when there are disagreements. Same in my marriage. I work on being a best friend with my spouse. And guess what? When I work on that and we are best friends, those disagreements, they're really not that big anymore because we understand that we love one another and our friendship comes first. So that's Monday Morning Marriage Minute. Hope you enjoyed it. Please continue to share these videos on YouTube. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Monday Morning Marriage Minute. And as always, you can send your comments, questions to oneminutemarriage@gmail.com. So hang out, continue to spread the news, and we will talk to you next week.